Hey everybody. So this is going to be yet another. I keep forgetting words lately. This is going to be another self-indulgent exercise of me screaming into the wood, or rather, doing this, because I have been feeling kind of like shit, and I need something to motivate me to actually start working again. So hopefully this will do it. Hopefully after this I'll have the energy to post another lecture. So um, so yeah, friends of mine were talking on Discord about Twitter, and essentially, why bother? Um, Friend A, he was like, he brought it up. He was thinking to himself, why am I on this? He had aspirations of using it as a professional tool to keep up with his colleagues, to share ideas and all that. But ultimately, for him, it's really just a place for him to shitpost and talk about matters that have nothing to do with his own profession. And if I remember correctly, it was more negative in connotation what he was posting. Friend B, another friend who was essentially said, I believe he said he was off Twitter entirely, although I don't know. I have seen a couple of his posts, but he essentially has sworn off Twitter because it's really just a place of anger, irritation, anxiety, and just a whole bunch of negative. It's a cesspool, really, when you think about it. And for him, in his profession, what he has found is that his colleagues are pretty much just, how did he put it? Geeks turned mean girls? Basically, just people who now feel that they need to make others feel worse because they went through a shitty life there, or shitty sort of child or high school, college experience. Now they have to return the favor, that sort of thing. I'm more with friend A in that I got onto Twitter because I have this aspiration of being a science communicator, something I need to reevaluate. Either I need to give it up, or I need to try something new and different, or try consistency. That might also help. But anyway, that's beside the point. But like with friend A, majority of the things I post really have nothing to do with science. They are shit posts, or they are screaming into the void, or screaming into the echo chamber. Most of whatever I see is people that I agree with, people that have the same views as I do, and all I really do is just amplify those for us to hear. It really, I doubt that my tweets ever penetrate far enough to reach anyone who has a differing opinion, even remotely, or even a sort of a nuanced opinion to it. If it does, they don't contact me. So it's not spurring conversation. If we don't have conversation, then really, what the hell is the use of Twitter anyway? And even if I could reach somebody with it, I feel that the way that I post things, the way that I communicate on the platform, isn't conducive for rational conversation. I did try recently to expand my horizons. I followed an atheist who I thought was how should I put this? Even keeled. That's not really the right word I want to say. Who I thought actually was coming at this from a place of, because her first question was, what does Jesus mean to you? And I responded, and she actually somewhat complimented me on my response. She didn't denigrate it, and she said it was actually one of the few responses that she could kind of wrap her head around. So I followed her, and whoo, that is a way to get out of your echo chamber, is follow one person with whom you might have a differing point of view. And holy shit, that will open up a just kaleidoscope of similar actions. And what I got from that was just a whole bunch of vitriol. Just a whole bunch of people just bashing Christianity, just bashing Christians and all that. And not to say that Christians, certain professed Christians, don't deserve. People have done some horrible things in the name of Christianity, and the religion and the folks like myself who are part of the religion, we need to do a better job of policing that shit that they're doing, particularly with the Christo-fascism in this country that is attempting to make it more of a theocracy than a democracy. But that's point is, I wasn't prepared really emotionally for getting out of my echo chamber. And even still, again, that's not what I want Twitter to be. I did not want Twitter to be a place really for me to express my own personal views per se. It would be a place for me to be an advocate for science and I think mental health. I think that's another avenue of advocacy that I want to go down. But it's not. Surprise, surprise, I did not find it to be a healthy environment. I know. Shocking revelation. Next, I'll be telling you that water is wet. Speaking of which, this rant brought to you by Waterloo Water. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do about Twitter. I recreated a Facebook account. Well, I'm not going to admit why I did that. It was for purely selfish reasons that has nothing to do with that. Advocate or science advocation or whatever, and really I need just to delete it. It was not a wise decision. I have not done any damage with it yet, and I should just get rid of it before I do any damage with it. Which reminds me of something I learned from DBT, which again is probably a shocking revelation to some, but it was actually pretty sage, and I found it to be very sage advice at the time. And it addresses emotional deregulation. I think that's the right word. Basically, the idea is a person suffering from borderline personality disorder, or really any disorder along those same lines, has difficulty regulating their own emotions. With BPD, people with BPD experience things more and longer than someone without BPD. So, for example, classic example, those damn Sarah McLachlan commercials about the abused animals. You can show that to someone who is without BPD, and they will have, hopefully they will feel sorrow, and after the commercial ends, there will be a certain amount of time where they still feel that that pain for those animals. If someone with BPD watches that, they might start crying uncontrollably because of the sorrow they feel, and they may do so for minutes, tens of minutes, even a half hour afterward, or some indeterminate amount of time. The point is that they feel it to a much greater degree, and any particular emotional stimulus to a much greater degree and for a much longer span of time than someone without the disorder. So it is very important for those people, or for people with that disease, like myself, to concentrate on our emotions and figure out ways to mitigate those strong reactions that we have, that I have. And the piece of advice was, think about what you're about. So if you have some stimulus in front of you, either someone said something, someone acted a certain way, or you see something happening, and a thought or action or some kind of response occurs to you immediately, and your Normal reaction would be just to go with it. Just say, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say this. I'm going to post this. Whatever. The idea is think, is this going to help? Is this going to make the situation any better for the people involved and for you? If the answer is no to either of those, then don't do it. Just walk away or find some other way to release it. Just don't do it, because the idea is if you do it, you're going to essentially you're allowing that emotion to regulate, or you are not regulating that emotion. You're allowing that emotion to have power over you, and it's basically a selfish action that's destructive. Again, not only for the people involved, but for yourself included. And hard thing, I mean, in principle, really easy thing. Obviously, if a thing pops in your head and you think that you evaluate it as being really not a great idea, then yeah, just don't do it. The way I approach it is, and I'm obviously not successful at this, not 100%. For instance, speaking of Twitter, there was a tweet posted by Conspiracy Cats that I responded to, and I had to delete it. It was only up for about 24 minutes or so, and I deleted it because I thought to myself, what is this helping? I mean, what I expressed in the tweet was valid for me, and I hold by what I had said in the tweet. But really, what was that helping? Was it helping Cats? Was it helping anyone else, any of his followers, or was it just helping me? And by helping me, it allowed me to essentially lash out because I was feeling irritable and shitty. And so it took me about 30 minutes to realize, yeah, that's not making my life better, so I deleted it. But there are often times, particularly involving Elon Musk, honestly, where I do things that are not in line with my principles. So yeah. But when I do succeed, when I am successful in regulating that and catching myself in that, what I think to myself in those moments is this going to make me feel better? Or is this going to make anyone else feel better? Or worse? And I think to myself, okay, if I can get myself to the point that I agree this is not a great thing to do. It's not going to bring positivity anywhere. Doesn't matter if I'm right. Doesn't matter, because if I'm right, it's going to come off as righteousness, and that's going to turn people off. But regardless, it's going to make things bad. I know, technical terms. And I think to myself, I have decided that this is not the direction I want my life to go anymore. I don't want to be that person. I do not want to be the person lashing out, the person throwing vitriol whenever I feel challenged or feel small in any way. I don't want to be that dude. And when I'm successful, I recognize this is making me that dude. This is perpetuating that behavior. And if I want a better life, then I have to change it, because obviously if I want a better life, the life I'm currently living is not my best life. I know, hokey, but it's not the life that I want. So if I want a better one, then obviously I have to change my behavior. And a lot of why I don't consider my behavior or my life good is because I don't live to the principles that I hold dear, and which is a shift for me. Because normally, if you'd asked me maybe 3-4 years ago, and really many times before then, what I would have told you is what I still feel partly today is that, and as I've said in previous videos, I have very little self-worth. The reason why I think my life is shit is because I think I am shit. I have no significance, no worth, no nothing. I was brought up feeling that way. I was, at best, I was insignificant. At worst, I was a liability. So the best that I could do, the best that I could possibly achieve in my efforts was invisible mediocrity. And so anytime that I did become visible to those that I wanted to be visible to, the only time I became visible to them was when I fucked up, when I caused pain, or when I caused shame upon them, or any variety of things. I don't know. They were not happy. I can't get inside their head, but they obviously were not happy with me. So, but now, before, that's why I felt my life was shit. Now, that's still part of it, a good part of it. But the other part is that I have ideals. I've thought to myself, all right. So this is probably going way farther than I wanted to with video, but all right. So after my first attempt to, not be here, really more of a gesture than an actual attempt, I thought to myself, all right, I need a reason to not do that again. And that was when I became, oddly enough, religious. Was not because of a fear of death, per se. It was a fear of me ending it, of me causing that death. I needed basically something to live for, not something to keep me from dying, if that makes any sense. And that's when that threw me, long story short, it's when I became a witch. Literally, I was a Wiccan, and no, male Wiccans are not warlocks. They are, in fact, witches. You can look it up. It's on the internet and in books. It's in books. Don't look at the internet. Anyway, so that basically, that's the reason why I became that. It's not the reason, but it's for simplicity's sake. Let's just put it for now. That is the reason why I became a person of faith. I don't know where I was going with that. How about you, Professor Cthulhu? What do you have to say about this? Yeah, I know. The U.S. rugby team beating anybody, Chile included, is a sign of the apocalypse, but I really have no idea what this has to do with anything. Alright, well, I'm sorry for bothering you then, Professor. He had some grading to do. Anyway, what originally made me want to post this is recently, and this is why I've been diagnosed as bipolar. I can never get this straight. One or two. The one that doesn't have mania is that occasionally I will have what is referred to as hypomanic states. In full-blown mania, you have almost what I read about it. In full-blown mania, and I've seen this once, is that you have someone who is completely out of touch with reality. They believe they have grandiose ideas about themselves, about the world, their place in that world. Sometimes it can be superhuman. They believe they can literally do anything, and they stay that way for a good chunk of time. They are exceedingly energetic. They do not sleep. They're constantly on the move. They're constantly doing something. And they can be real fucking productive. I don't know whether or not the product of that productivity is any good, but they can clean a house. And spick and span, top bottom, no time at all. And then they crash. And they go into a depression. Assuming they don't do something that is harmful to them in any way during the manic state. For me, hypomania, what hypomania looks like for me is an elevated sense of energy that comes out of nowhere. Like, I'll have times where I feel joy, and there are times when I feel proud of myself and motivated to do work and things of that nature. And there are triggers, as it were. There are reasons for that. Words of affirmation from someone that I have respect for, or maybe a video of mine gets more views on it than normal, or I get more positive feedback on it than normal. Or I have, I do some activity or some outreach that tells me, hey, maybe I'm onto something with this whole science advocacy thing. Maybe I can actually do this. And so it motivates me to get more. With hypomania, there isn't really an identifiable point or identifiable reason for why I do that. It's usually marked, when I'm hypomanic, like with what I've read about mania, my sleep pattern is fucked. I either cannot sleep, or I sleep very fitfully. I can only sleep for maybe an hour or two at a time. I'm not trying to nap, I'm literally trying to sleep. And I'll get to sleep after much tossing turning, but I won't stay asleep for more than, say, an hour or 2 hours. And then I can lay there, irritated, anxious, for more hours if I wanted to. And then finally, I just say, fuck it, I'm getting out of bed, and I will, I'll do something. And then once I start doing something, I continue to do something. I continue to move. I continue to work. And I bounce from one project to another, to another, to another. But I don't have, there's no real grandiosity to it, unless you want to say that I actually feel confident about what I'm doing or how I'm doing it, which to me is, kind of elevated above my normal way of thinking. But I don't think of myself as superhuman. I don't think of myself as God's chosen, or that I'm indestructible or anything of that nature. And it only lasts maybe a day, on average, about a day. And then I crash. And then I can crash pretty hard, like what happened fairly recently. And I'll lose days. I will certainly be non-productive. At the best of times, I'll be non-productive. Worst of times, I'll be bedridden. In the worst of times, I will go to very dark places. And I will consider that perhaps being out and about, free, is not in my own best interest. I'll just put it that way. But then I come out of it. I like to say that I pull myself out of it, or I work myself out of it, and maybe I am. I don't know. In a previous video, I gave a really bad analogy of that my life is like living in a well. Or my emotional state is like living in a well. I can see at the top of the well there's sunshine, birds are flying, rainbows or unicorns are farting, or what have you. And I'm in a constant process of climbing the walls of this well, slipping back down, climbing back up. Sometimes I slip a little, sometimes I slip a lot. With the hypomania thing, the best way I can describe this is I get near the top of it, and then I start throwing myself above the lip of the well, higher than ground level, come back down, but do not grab the edge of the well. I grab further on down. And then when I come out of the hypomania, it's sort of like I jump so far up and come back down that I basically just miss handholds all the way near down to the base of the well. I literally crash. I mean, obviously it's not as simple as that. My downside is not nearly as, or my downside has a range. So, like I said, sometimes I will just simply lose productivity and just kind of live in an angsty sort of shitty miasma, or I will go to even darker places. And what it really irritates me about the whole thing is the thing isn't periodic. If it's going to cycle, and for the love of God, be periodic, because at least then I could plan for this shit to happen. I could be like, okay, this week is going to be shit. I'm just going to push everything that I'm doing away from that week and just take that week off. Let folks know this is going to be a shitty week for me. But no, that's not how it happens. That's not how it works. And I have been so concentrated on the depression side of things that I can spot where I'm going, when I'm going down. I can spot when I'm sliding into depression or into a deeper depression. And I can mitigate that. Sometimes I am successful enough to get low and pull myself back up to normal. What normal is a subject for a whole different conversation. And sometimes I can't. Sometimes I fall farther than I would like. But I figure out a way to stop myself, and then I drag myself back up. The motivation behind that, particularly this time around, is, obviously I have obligations, and which I have not been seeing to. And that needs to change because, again, that's not the type of person I want to be. That is a person I have been multiple times, and the outcome of that ain't great. It's not a pleasant thing to be, or not a pleasant place to be in life. So I want to stop that. And so I realize, all right, I have to figure out a way to get out of that. And like I said, the whole point of this, the reason why I was doing this entire thing anyway, was how do I actually do that? How do I actually pull my ass out of it? Is from a CBT standpoint, the idea is, the theory behind it is every emotion is preceded by thought, which I kind of think is bullshit, but we'll go with it for now. So the idea is you have thought, oh, you're ugly. That makes you feel crappy. And then that will snowball into other thoughts, like, I'm ugly because I'm hugely fat. I'm ugly because I am covered in psoriasis. I'm ugly because I'm really short. Anything really. And you would combat that, and there are a number of things like minimalism, mind reading, future telling, min-maxing, things of that nature. So, for example, one of them is, and this kind of applies to me, I don't know if in the video you can see the spots on my forehead, and I have it. So I would think to myself, I would look myself in the mirror, like actually I did this morning, and be like, great, I'm starting to look like a leper again. And the thought to combat that is, are you really looking like a leper? I mean, yeah, you got spots. It's kind of unsightly, but leper? That seems to be a bit extreme. And then I'll say, yeah, alright, it's extreme. You got me on now. And then the theory behind that is, I'll recognize that I have this maladaptive thinking. I can't remember the exact term they use. Maladaptive thinking, and then I'll work myself back up. I will feel better for having recognized that thought and challenged it with the idea that, no, you're wrong. you are just as handsome one way or the other on the number scale as you were before this little outbreak. Maybe a little lower on the scale, but really it's not huge. It's not life-changing. The problem with that is, while that might work in the moment, and not to disparage the method, for anyone who wants to try it. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. Best book on that I can... obviously, I would suggest talking to a therapist about it, but the best book I could recommend on it is Feeling Good by Brown, I think. Feeling Good is the title of it. Anyway, it's a workbook that allows you to work through this sort of shit. But I will feel better for having that. Now, it goes two ways at this point with me. Either I will then say, great, all right, I don't look shitty. But I am stupid. And I'm stupid because I can no longer derive Kepler's laws from first principles from memory. From, like, sit down, give me a piece of paper, from first principles, derive all three Kepler's laws. Because I can no longer do that, I'm an idiot. Then I think to myself, really, is that a yes, at some point in your life you were able to do that. Which is very cool, by the way. I love being able to do that. Anyway. I was able to do that. But really, is that a marker of intelligence? I mean, I guess. To me, it's more of a marker of talent than anything else. Because intelligence would mean, if I were stupid, it would mean that I could not learn it again. And I think think to myself, this is bad thinking. I can't remember the exact maladaptive way of thinking of what the there's a word for it, misconception or whatever it is. But I can challenge it. I can say that this isn't realistic. This is it's a generalization is I think the thing that I'm looking for. So I can challenge it. But that immediately comes after the I am ugly. So I challenge that. I go to then I'm stupid. Then I go to I'm physically weak. And you can see where this is going. And I tell my therapist, I've told my therapist, if that was the only thing I had to work with, I would spend more time challenging my thoughts than doing anything else in the day. The other thing is, I would challenge myself, and then I wouldn't believe it. I would think to myself, all right, I can believe it here, but here, no, I don't. I don't care if it's maladaptive. I don't give a shit if thinking myself completely ugly because my psoriasis is coming back is irrational. I don't give a shit because that's what I want to feel because I feel like I am a piece of shit. That's something I don't think my therapists really get their heads around. So, how do I get out of it? How do I pull myself up so that I can become functional again? There are a number of ways that I try to do it. Breaking patterns, like if I'm avoiding things because of just television or thankfully I have never self-medicated through drugs or alcohol or anything like that, but I have self-medicated through, or at least not recently, through television, through gaming, basically just things that take me out of the world and are not productive. They're not overly destructive, but they aren't helpful in any way. Break that cycle. Figure out not break it to the point of I'm no longer going to game. I am now going to work. No, that doesn't work for me. What I do is I am no longer going to game. I'm going to read. I try to find something that is more engaging. Because watching television and gaming to me is fairly mindless. I can, there's a little bit of lizard brain sort of activity, particularly in gaming, but it's pretty passive. Reading actually is a little, for me, is more engaging. I have to think about things. I have to imagine what's going on. The plot threads are a little bit more complicated to piece together, assuming the book is any good. And so it's more engaging. Or if I need physical engagement, or if that doesn't work, then I try physical engagement. I try, walking or exercising, and not just random shit like walk around the block. I've never found that to be useful. I'll walk to work and back, or instead of ordering DoorDash, I will actually walk to the restaurant and come back with the food. Something like that. Something that where I am being physically active for a reason, other than just to be physically active. Because exercising for exercise's sake has never been a proper motivator for me. So I recognize that. I go with that. Then, and that kind of breaks me out of that cycle. That allows me to start thinking a little bit more rationally. And this video is getting long for me, for one of these. But that really shouldn't matter. I'm not really doing this. I'm really only doing this for myself, to be honest with you. I don't know if anyone's actually going to watch this long or not. But if the people do, and actually people get anything out of this, that would be cool. That would be cool. Anyway, so what I've been doing more of late than I had been previous in years in my life is, and I think this is fairly common, or at least I've been told this is fairly common, that it is natural for human beings to focus on the negative shit in their life rather than the positive things. For one reason or another, it's never been explained to me why. It has just been told to me that it's a fairly natural thing for people to, when they look back on their lives, or when they look back on an event they may have just done, the things that pop out to them are the mistakes, or those things that caused a negative emotion. And that's what sticks with you. For me, I use those negative thoughts, or I use those negative memories to validate the idea that I'm a piece of shit. I mean, I could be like, I could say, yes, I'm a piece of shit, and they'd be like, Rob, no, you're not. Why do you think that way? And then I had a litany of examples as to why I'm a piece of shit. Which is a fallacy in and upon itself, because obviously I'm not taking into account. I'm completely ignoring any positive contributions that I make to the world. But even that whole line of argument or thought actually is problematic. But again, I probably won't get into that. Point I'm trying to make is the things that would keep me down, the thing that really kept me down, was that reinforcement of that idea. Was the reinforcement of, okay, I'm a piece of shit because of this that had happened to me in the past, this that happened to me in the past, this, and this. And I would ruminate on that shit. I would just keep thinking about how screwed up, and I keep thinking about the consequences of that behavior or that particular event, and how that snowballed, and how that and then I'll invent missed opportunities of, if I hadn't lost Lauren, then my life would be tremendously better at this moment. But it's good mind crack. It actually feels good to do it. It feels good to ruminate on the bad shit that I've done and think to myself, if I had the power to do it over again, I would change and everything would be hunky-dory, which is complete bullshit. It can't happen, and even if you could go back in time, there's no guarantee you're going to actually be able to have the strength or wherewithal to choose a different path. And then you get into the whole, well, if I'd stayed with Lauren, then I wouldn't have made these friendships over the years, and yada, 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 yada. Point that I'm badly making is, instead of doing that, I take the opposite track. And again, this is revolutionary thinking, I know. But I make an active commitment to, for no reason whatsoever, if I'm having a quiet moment, I think to myself, you remember that time that you talked to those kids and they seemed enthusiastic about learning science from you? Remember the feeling of that you had when talking to those kids? Or the feeling you got from, the telescope was broken, things looked fairly grim, we were thinking that the telescope might be offline for weeks, if not a month, and then you fixed it, or I fixed it. Remember what that felt like. And think about that, not as a way to combat some negative bullshit that I was just thinking about. Just do that without being prompted. Just walk down the hall, you gotta take a piss, and your mind is sort of wandering around. And before you can let it wander anywhere dark, which it naturally would want to, just think about a positive thing that you've done. And we've all done at least one positive thing in our life, I would think. So hold on to that. And, and just keep that feeling. And for me, it doesn't have to be, and I don't sit around and think, oh, wow, I am just so awesome because of this, and this. That would be almost as bad, if not as bad. It would be along the same lines as just constantly thinking of myself as shit because of all of these negative things. Thinking of myself as inordinately great because of all of this good stuff that I've done, again, isn't helpful. I don't feel that it is a way to productive life. What does not work for me is aphorisms. I fucking hate aphorisms. If they work for you or if they work for everybody else, go nuts for those cronuts. But for me, it's just pointless. This idea of, and it just makes me feel new agey. It's just something there are things about my past upbringing that I can put down. I can leave aside. This idea of touchy-feely goodness, new agey shit, like affirmations or mindfulness, although I'm of a mixed mind of mindfulness, or wellness, just makes my ass clench. But affirmations are this idea that you basically, you've probably seen this in a movie or so, this idea that you repeat to yourself a sort of a mantra of, I am worthy, people like me, people like it when I come into the room, I'm intelligent, I'm good looking, this sort of shit. And you just keep repeating it to yourself. You have a long, any sort of list, maybe 5 things, 30 things, whatever. You keep telling yourself this. And the idea is that you're retraining your brain to accept these things as true. For me, because I know that's what I'm doing, like, my brain says, you're literally trying to brainwash yourself. And I in no way ever think that brainwashing is a positive thing. You're literally trying to brainwash yourself. What the fuck are you doing? This doesn't work. And I can imagine I am not the only person who feels that way. I really have a sort of hard on for affirmations. I don't know why I'm going off about it. But, they don't work for me. If they work for anyone else, great. Keep doing them. All that kind of good stuff. But that's not where that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about finding memories that are good and feeling those memories and using those to buoy my self-worth. It's not that I think about those past events and think to myself, oh, I'm worried. I can't remember what the smiley, this SNL thing is, but I don't think to myself, yes, I am wonderful and brilliant and approachable and all this sort of shit. I think to myself, I had a goal of what I wanted to do. I met that goal, and it felt good. It felt like I did something worthwhile. And that helps pull me out of any kind of miasma that I'm in. Again, I'm not great at it. It's not a catch-all. It doesn't work in every situation for all things because nothing does. There is no magic bullet. But yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to say. And oh, if you're wondering about the background, I did a stream about dear flat Earth, space is a thing, and this is stuff that I showed on it. The thing, or the images that play on loop, those are images that I've taken over the years with telescopes, or that one my students took over the years with certain telescopes. The one on the left is an image that I took of the pillars of creation. So you can, those are kind of dead center to the bottom. If you don't know what the pillars of creation is the pillars of creation they are a stellar formation complex. They are a immense cloud of gas and dust, where stellar formation is actually occurring as I'm talking to you. Hence, pillars of creation, because hopefully you can see that they're actually lines. If you Google it, you're going to get the Hubble image, which blows us completely out of the freaking water, and you can literally see that there are pillars of it. But because I was like, I like that. Let me see what I can do with it. Let me see what anyway, I'm babbling now. If any of you have gotten to this point, thank you very much for watching. This has done me quite a bit of good, so hopefully it also does other people some good. All right. Peace out.